Hey there, it's Phil here. Welcome to another episode of My Data Ponderings. Now you might be wondering why we're sat on my kitchen floor. Well, there's a good reason for that. Just recently I spent over 4 hours inside this cupboard. Not because it was a very good game of hide and seek, but it was because with zero experience in plumbing, I decided to change my own kitchen tap. Now, I didn't expect to spend 4 hours inside this cupboard, but I discovered a gremlin whilst I was in there, that someone had built the tap in such a way that I actually couldn't physically get my arm under there and unscrew it. So with a few different types of saws and different things later, I managed to get the tap replaced. But again, I didn't expect to see what I saw under there. Now, this teaches me a lesson. Maybe we need to grab a brew and talk this through. That rhymed. Unintentional. Ooh, a bit stronger than usual. I think my milk ratio's a bit off there. But anyway. Okay, I think what you're probably expecting me to say here is the main thing to do when you have a situation like I had with my sink is to get a professional in to fix it. Well, of course, and as a consultant, I definitely agree with that statement. But that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about is perhaps like under my sink when I found gremlins in there that I didn't know they were there, or they were there for many years and just I hadn't delved into them and I was scared about what might happen if I touched them. I think we have lots of systems and processes like that in our data landscapes and within our organization. I deal with a lot of clients that often say, oh, don't touch that system, because if we break that, then I don't know how we're going to fix it. And that's a scary place to be in, right? That we have our hands held by systems that we can't change and we can't develop. It's killing our creativity and our innovation within our spaces to develop further. And we end up supporting these things that we really don't want, we just can't break. Let's talk about 3 things that we can do to stop ourselves from getting into that situation. My number 1 point is to stop building more. I think often when we come across these situations where our hands are tied by these systems we can't change, we build workarounds or we build things to try and make our lives easier because of this big rock that we've got sat in the middle. Stop building workarounds and actually think, well, what's the underlying business value that this process delivers for us, and is there a better way that we can deliver that same value for the business rather than working our way around something that already exists. Stop building more and more tech debt on top of this unmovable system that you have. Think instead, is there a better way I can deliver that same value and potentially replace what's holding us at the moment? My second point for avoiding being in a situation with tech debt and gremlins under your kitchen sink is to see technology as a vehicle, not as a destination. And what I mean by that is, I think quite a lot of the time when we get stuck in technical debt is because we see the technology as being the answer to the situation, and that technology doesn't do exactly what I need. So therefore we have to change our process to meet what the technology does. And that's the wrong way of thinking, right? We should be thinking about, I want to make my workforce more supported and to work together in better workflows. Therefore, I don't know, a Salesforce might help me achieve that. So therefore, I'm starting with what I need and then I get the technology to try and answer that question for me. Not the approach of let's implement this massive big technology change in our organization to drive something. No, what we're actually trying to achieve is over here is the business value. And I think if we take that approach and we let the technology serve us instead of being a servant to the technology, we can help avoid some of these tech debt situations we find ourselves in. My third and final point's a bit more of a practical one, to be honest. And I think we have a lot of tech debt around the fact that people move on. And that's fine, people do move on, people change careers. We see that more and more often in our industries nowadays. But I think you need to prepare for the person not being there. I often see a lot of organizations struggle with the fact they wait until the person has already decided to leave the organization, and then you have 2 weeks to do this mass handover of everything they've built. How about instead, when you're building things, you prepare for the person who's built it not to be there? And one effective way to do that is by documenting. Now that's a dirty word in a lot of organizations, documentation, but I think that's formed from the fact that people don't document properly. Think about what you're building. How do you explain that to someone else when you're building it? And if you document as you go, I think you can reduce the 100-page documents that you create, and you actually create something that's practical and can be handed over easily. But try to do that before the person's already committed to leave your organization and has switched off a bit in their mind. Try to get people to document as they build. So hopefully those 3 things will help us with avoiding some of these gremlins. I wish I'd have known this before I stuck my head under that sink. Anyway, thanks for listening in, and catch you soon for another episode.